Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 5 of What Would Charlie Shoot? This week we're going to be talking about how I'm going to be switching the podcast name to Charlie Nabeck Co. instead of What Would Charlie Shoot? We're going to be talking about how you can share your podcasts. We're going to be talking about how you can share your story on Share Dreams Co. We're going to talk about how you can share your photos and your writing on Share a Picture magazine. And I'm looking for guest spots. And so this week, my main story also is called Dear New York, Thank You, But I Don't Miss You. I want to tell you a little bit about the history about how I had spent in New York City and how it led me to other things in life, and how exile led to the life that I always wanted. It was actually a cold winter night in New York City as I got off the Times Square subway to head home. I had a whirlwind of demons in my head that led me to overthink everything. Work was slow, I was in the midst of divorce, and to make matters worse, depression kicked in. As I passed through the 42nd Street turnstile, a homeless man shouted, "Pennies from heaven!" and threw over 100 pennies at me. The sound was deafening and echoed throughout the empty tunnels as pennies scattered. Being a photographer, I stopped to take a photograph of the pennies on the floor because it triggered me. I remembered how my grandmother told me when she passed that she would send me 2 cents as a message. I felt like her message was saying to get the fuck out of New York City. I had many friends come and go as the city chewed them up and spit them out. Was I next? Then there was a phone call. The next day I received a phone call from my mother. I said, "Mom, last night a homeless man threw over 100 pennies at me as I was getting off the train." My mom agreed that it was a sign, and mothers like to check in on their children no matter what their age. Mine is no different. She invited me to take a break from New York to visit family in Michigan. She suggested that the city was draining me. I told her I would think about it, and we left the conversation with the traditional, "I love you." Later that evening, my thoughts were eating me alive. I could not eat, I could not sleep, and worse, I was dealing with very, very dark thoughts of suicide. At midnight, I walked through Hell's Kitchen and found a random tattoo shop that was open. I have a motto in my life of XX with 7 spaces and a colon. I've been through some tough times in my years. This stands for where there's a will, there's a way. Pause, breathe, pray, and continue. I don't know why this grounds me and brings me back from dark places, but it does. I decided that it was time to get this tattooed where I could remind myself. I'm a very tattooed individual, but I've hidden my tattoos out of the fear in professional situations. This time I said, fuck it, I'm going to get the tattoo so that everyone can see it. I asked the tattoo artist to tattoo my hand. I don't remember the artist's name, and I have no idea if the shop is still there post-pandemic 3 years later, but I do remember that it is still one of my most prized tattoos. The next day, I decided it was time to take my mother up on her offer to leave New York for a while. I spoke with my then ex-wife and agreed that it would be a good idea for me to leave. I had no idea for how long, so I rented a U-Haul and packed all my belongings. I did not know that this would be the last time I set foot in New York City. Driving over 12 hours from New York to Michigan was exhausting. Several times I almost ran off the road as a Sandman tried to tell me to sleep. Somehow I made it to Michigan and arrived in the middle of a blizzard. My family greeted me with open arms and helped me get settled. When I left New York at the end of 2019, I did not know if I would ever set foot in New York again. I did not realize that there was about to be a pandemic that would change the world. I did not know that my life was about to turn for the better. Would I have changed anything? No. Everything that happens in life happens for a reason, whether good or bad. 2 years after I left New York City, I had ample solitude to figure out what was next. I found my way again by exploring woodworking, knife making, and spending time camping. And I met my second wife through what I love, photography. Life changes, and it's usually not when something does not feel right. After 2 years in Michigan and meeting my wife, it all felt right. We decided it was time to say goodbye to the United States and visit Colombia to spend some time with family. I am happy when I write to you from the Andes Mountains today, and life gives you what you need when you need it. Listen to it and don't fight it. As for New York, it was like a cold, cruel, and expensive place. I entered the city for status as a photographer, and it gave me a lot of opportunities that I'm very thankful for. But I went, I saw, I got the t-shirt, and here I am today. There are many other goals that I would like to do in life, and I don't see New York City as one of them anymore. I focus on the points that matter with my family, sharing the gift of photography with others, and I am happy. So, leaving New York City was one of the biggest things in my life because I thought I had been a failure, and really it was just leading to other things that I was meant to do instead of being in New York. So, anyone out there that's struggling with the same kind of situation as me, don't be afraid of it, embrace it. This week, I want to get back to answering some of your questions as well, and so I got some new ones on the board today. Number one is, how many photos should I get from my wedding photographer? As a photographer that used to do weddings back in the day, that's a very loaded question, is what I might say. Your photographer should actually sit down with you before the wedding to go ahead and do a pre-consult, to go ahead and talk about how many you're going to get per package, because every wedding photographer is different. I would suggest, if your wedding photographer has not done this already, please reach out to them via email, phone, or otherwise, and ask them, hey, how many pictures am I going to get? They should be able to give you an agreement, and if not, they're not the right wedding photographer for you. Number two, what got you interested in photography and how did you get started? Well, I actually have a grandmother that gave me a camera at age 10. My story has been widely published, but I'll tell it again for today. My grandmother gave me a photography lesson with a camera at age 10, where she gave me my first camera, and about a month later we went to Disney World. I photographed Winnie the Pooh as my very first photograph. I'm selling that first photograph to go ahead and relive history, but in the meantime, that's how I got started, is through family. I photographed everything I loved, that moved, that didn't move, and then some, and that's how I learned photography initially, before I ended up in school and other places to learn more about photography. That brings us to number three of, how do I learn professional photography? Well, that all depends on how you classify professional photography. Professional photography is simply where you make money, where photography is where you simply make pictures. Combining the two combines business and photography. So if you want to be a professional photographer, my advice is learn regular photography first. Learn how to make great pictures, learn how to go ahead and do your exposures, learn how to go ahead and communicate in photography. Do that for about maybe 5 to 10 years, and then after you get comfortable with that, start to hit up your friends, family, all that good stuff, and go ahead and see if anybody wants to give you money from there. Number four, what makes a great photograph? Well, I'm a strong believer that a great photograph can be felt in the heart, and it's like a visual language. With a great photograph, you feel it. Simple as that. Number five, how can I be your intern? Well, I've had a lot of them over the years, and thankfully for all of them, they've helped me a great deal. Right now, I'm not taking on any type of interns, but in the future, if you would like to be my intern, feel free to follow me on socials. Feel free to keep in touch via email, all that good stuff. And if I open up any intern positions, we'll talk. Last but not least, today I want to go ahead and tell you that I'm relaunching my Udemy class again. Thank you to 523 students that have registered for my class. If you'd love to be one of them, hop over to Udemy and search my name, and I'm happy to go ahead and teach you on Udemy as well. But I'm about to relaunch it for Black Friday sales. You're going to be able to get one heck of a deal on Udemy classes for my photography lessons. So if you're interested, hop over to Udemy. I'll be talking about that soon over on my blog, and you can learn more. I want to say thank you today for everybody that's joined me, and for all the people out there that want to make great photographs. Always be shooting. Take your camera out with you every single day. Photograph everything that moves, that doesn't move, and then some. And that's how you learn photography. That's how you make memories. That's how you live. Simple as that. And for anybody else out there that's looking to get into other projects as well, we're going to be talking about some other projects coming up on the podcast, or share a podcast, for example. If you have a podcast that you'd love to share, please feel free to contact me via email or any of the social media outlets as well. If you have a story that you'd love to share, hit me up about the Shared Dreams co-podcast as well. It's another podcast that I'm working on at the moment. And if you want to share a picture in your writing, feel free to hit me up about Share a Picture magazine. And last but not least, if you'd love to be a guest on my podcast, please feel free to contact me via email. It's charlie@charlienabeck.co, and I'm happy to talk to you about your photography and your history as a photographer. Thanks so much for joining me again this week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.